Crime-free housing policies are fueling evictions across Arizona, often without police involvement, criminal charges, or tenant protections. A new two-part investigative piece by the Arizona Republic finds, among other things, that landlords can evict tenants for alleged criminal activity, even without an arrest or investigation. To learn more, we welcome Hannah Dreyfus, investigative reporter at the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. This is your story. You're the reporter on this one. Great work. Thank you so much for joining us here. A crime-free lease addendum is the focus. What is that?
Sure. It's something that most Arizonans have probably never heard of. What the crime-free lease addendum is, it's a document that is actually in most rental lease agreements for apartments across Arizona. And what it does, or the idea behind it, is to disincentivize tenants from getting involved in crime. And most tenants, when they sign it, they're saying, I have no intention to do crime in this apartment, no problem, I'll sign on the dotted line. What they don't realize is what it actually does, it enables landlords to expand the definition of what they consider crime, so that things that wouldn't necessarily fall under that category could all of a sudden be subject to eviction.
That was going to be my next question. When you say crime, how is crime defined and who defines it?
That's an excellent question. So the crime-free lease addendum gives landlords the power to determine what is criminal activity. Now, usually you would think that law enforcement and the courts need to be involved in what's considered criminal activity. But what you see with the crime-free lease addendum is it gives a landlord the opportunity to say, I think that what happened here is a crime, and I'm going to issue you an immediate eviction because of it.
What about something like making too much noise? I mean, could that be considered a crime?
Yes. According to the crime-free lease addendum, they give very lax and broad definitions for what could fall under the category of criminal activity. In fact, people become responsible not only for their own behavior, but for the behavior of guests or affiliated persons on the property.
If an affiliated person or a guest, I mean, what if they do something and the tenant doesn't know that they've done this sort of thing? Is the tenant still?
Yeah, with the crime-free lease addendum, a tenant is still held responsible for activities that take place by guests, even if they don't know about it or could not have reasonably prevented it.
And not necessarily even on the property, correct?
Exactly. It also extends criminal activity to anywhere near the premises, which gives a really expansive definition of what could be considered a crime.
Interesting. And again, what kind of remedy does a tenant have in this kind of situation?
So tenants can fight an immediate eviction in court. However, the policy tends to target low-income and minority tenants who usually don't have the resources to hire themselves a lawyer and fight an immediate eviction notice. They also frequently don't know that they even can represent themselves in court.
Yeah.
When they get an immediate eviction notice, it's a 24-hour get out of your apartment notice.
I was going to say that when you said immediate eviction, it's like, whoa, this means you made too much noise, you're gone.
Exactly. One of the things that makes this type of eviction so harmful is that it is considered an immediate eviction. Once a landlord determines, and it can be independent of law enforcement, that a crime has taken place, they can issue a 24-hour notice for that person to get off the property. And frequently they don't even know that they'll have the opportunity to defend themselves in court.
So your investigation, and again, this is, before I get to that, state law. Where does state law fit into all this?
Sure. So there is an Arizona statute that says that people cannot commit crime on Arizona properties. And it does specify the same types of crime that are specified in the lease addendum. However, the lease addendum goes beyond what Arizona law says in terms of what's not allowed in the property and allows landlords a significant amount more discretion to determine what is and is not criminal activity.
And the lease addendum, state law, basically, they don't intersect?
They overlap, but the lease addendum takes it further than state law.
Yes. Where did this lease, as I read your story, this lease addendum kind of thing came from a former police officer, am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. This movement, which is now in hundreds of cities across the country, not just in Arizona, but all over the place, started and was born in Mesa, Arizona, by a now retired police officer named Officer Tim Zarek.
Yeah, and I think most people would say, you know, if you're a land, you don't want crime being committed on your property, you don't want your tenants involved with crime, but there's such a thing as due process that I would think would be at play here as well. I guess the bottom line is this working? Is crime being reduced in areas where these lease addendums are in force?
Sure, Ted. So we decided to tackle that question using data and actual analysis. What I did is an extensive effort of public records requests to cities across Arizona to find out which cities implement these policies, when they started implementing them, and then what we used is FBI crime statistics to analyze if these policies were actively, effectively reducing crime. And what we found out is they are not. These policies do not actually reduce crime. I think everyone can understand that you don't want crime on your rental property, but this finding has to make us question.
Yeah, and you mentioned people of color were targeted more than most?
That's another an analysis we did with the data. We looked at demographic data in places that do implement these policies, and we actually went down to the block by block level in 4 Arizona cities to see who is most likely to be subject to these policies. And we found that you're 2 times more likely to be a Black tenant to be targeted by these policies.
But it raises the question of whether or not any tenant in any property really even knows what everyone's looked through lease agreements and you look at them, your eyes start glazing and you just, where do I sign?
Yeah.
Especially if you're younger and you're not as experienced in these sorts of things. Do these folks even know these lease addendums exist?
Absolutely not. One of the families who I spoke to and featured in the story, the Johnsons, when they were signing their lease, they saw something in the agreement about not, dealing drugs from their apartment and not, having sex workers in their apartment. They're a family. They have 4 kids. They were like, of course, this doesn't apply to us. They had no idea what they were actually signing away was their right to due process if they were faced with an immediate eviction.
Yeah. Again, great work on this. But last question, I know that in your story, we talked about the person who came up with this idea. And one of the reasons behind the idea is that it frees law enforcement to take on more serious crime as opposed to the person who's making too much noise and these sorts of things. Did you find that in your research?
Well, that's actually a really interesting question. It does, what it does is it enables landlords to act in a law enforcement capacity. And that has a lot of problems because, an average citizen is not supposed to be implementing, criminal law. And so it kind of has a trickle-down effect of problems when you empower people who are not trained in criminal law enforcement to be doing that job. And in fact, it doesn't reduce crime on these properties. So even if you do see police officers attending to crime elsewhere, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be less crime on these properties because of these policies.
Yeah. Hannah Dreyfus again, Arizona Republic, azcentral.com. Great work.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Thanks for sharing. We appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.